First off, let me start by saying I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a therapist, I'm not licensed in any way or anything. I'm just an average person who just so happens to be pretty analytical and has a lot of thoughts about a lot of things. But I know a lot of people who suffer from depression. I do as well, in various aspects, at various levels. When I'm talking about depression here, I'm not talking about having, just a bad day or just being a little sad. And I'm not even necessarily talking about clinical levels either. This is excluding like chemical imbalances or hormonal problems or anything medically induced I'm talking about issues that are purely mental, because I'm not a therapist, I'm not licensed to make diagnoses or anything like that. What I'm talking about is, what is it that leads people who, by all intents and purposes, should not be depressed? They shouldn't be sad. They're famous actors and actresses, or powerful, successful people, or even just everyday people in your life who you look at them and they're like, they're always happy, always smiling. They're just, absolutely rock stars at life. How is it that these people can still suffer from depression? And some of them even so much so they take their own life. How can that be? Well, let's start by saying something that most people probably heard, and that's money does not make you happy. Money doesn't create happiness. Money doesn't fix all of your problems. And it's true, it doesn't. There's another saying, maybe a little tongue-in-cheek, that acknowledges, yes, okay, money may not fix all my problems and it may not make me happy, but I'd rather be sad and cry in my Ferrari. And that's a joke, maybe, for some. But the point still stands. That it does not matter what house you have. It doesn't matter what car you drive. It doesn't matter what clothes you wear. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter what businesses you build. It doesn't matter how much fame, power, and acclaim you acquire for yourself. It doesn't matter the title behind your name on your resume, or how many degrees you get. It doesn't matter how many children you have. It doesn't matter how many vacations you take. Anybody can suffer from depression. Anybody. And it's because depression at its core is made up of two things. Once again, I'm going to reiterate, this is in my estimation. But in my estimation, depression is made up of two things. First is the delta between your reality and your expectation of what your reality should be. What do I mean here? That means it almost doesn't matter where you are in life. You can be just starting out, or you can be incredibly successful and having achieved a ton of your goals. If your reality is not matched to your expectations for what your reality should look like at that point in your life, that is one of the factors that's going to lead to depression. Once we pair it with the second thing we'll talk about in a minute. The distance between your reality and your expectations for your reality. And this can be true about anything. This is not just a financial thing. Let's say, you're 30 years old and you expected that you would be married and have kids, and you don't. Or let's say you're 30 years old and you're married, but you expected that you'd have a loving, happy relationship, and instead you have to fight for your marriage all the time. Let's say you're 50 years old and you thought you'd be closer to retirement than you are. Or you're 20 years old and thought that you'd be doing better in school. Or you thought by the end of the year you would have lost this much weight when you set out at the start of the year with your New Year's resolutions, whatever. If your reality doesn't match your expectations for what your reality should have been, you're going to struggle with that. Another thing to take into consideration on this part is that your expectations for your life consistently increase. Your expectations are always going up for a lot of people, and especially in America. So no matter where you are, let's say you have, some incredible luck. You're in your 20s, you graduate college, and your expectation is that, by 25, you'd have a good job. That's what you're looking to do. But something goes really, really right in your life. You had an idea, it took off. Next thing you know, you're the next Mark Zuckerberg, and you're worth millions and millions and millions, and you're only 23. You've already exceeded what your original expectations were. Significantly so. Does that mean that you're now safe from this dynamic? No, your expectations change based on your reality. So now this person's reality is that they're worth millions and millions. Now, instead of wanting to have a steady, stable job, maybe now their new goal by 25 is to completely take out the competition, or to double their revenue, or to build a business massive, or open a new business, or bring on new investors, or whatever. Your expectations are constantly ahead of your reality. The wider that delta gets, the more you're going to struggle, which is a challenge because no matter how much you increase your reality, your expectations increase too. The second factor, which is arguably the more important, is your belief about whether or not you are capable of making your reality catch up to your ever-increasing expectation. What do I mean? We've established that no matter how much your reality increases or decreases, your expectations are always going to continue to increase and outstrip no matter how much growth you see in your reality. If that delta starts to get wide, do you believe you can catch up? Because if you do, then that recognition that where you are is not where you thought you should be, instead results in determination, diligence, and hard work and effort. Depression, hopelessness happens when you don't think you can catch up. When your reality has been left behind by your expectations and you don't think you can catch them. So, there are other factors at play, but I think these are two of the big ones. How wide is that delta between your reality and your expectations, and do you believe you can catch them? Now, a lot of people recognize, especially that first point, and they'll try to help somebody who's struggling by addressing that first point, either by improving their reality or attempting to help them reorient their expectations. So either they will give to them in some way. Maybe their expectations were that they would have a stronger friend group. They'd be surrounded by more friends. They would be more popular than they are. And somebody recognizes that this is something that that person's struggling with, and they say, okay, I'm going to take this person under my wing. I'm going to bring them along with me. I'm going to introduce them to my friends. I'm going to make sure that they come with me to the parties and make sure they're having fun. That is a very good thing to do. It's very good. It's what a lot of people do when they push for social reforms, when they want housing for homeless people, and things like that, when they donate. That's what that's getting to. Fix their reality. Make their reality better. If you can fix their reality, then you can fix their mentality. There's a problem with that, though. If that's what you're relying on, there's a problem with it. We'll get to that in a second. So a lot of people will focus on that part of the equation, or they'll focus on the other part where they instead try to reorient somebody's expectations. They'll say, look, you're upset and you're sad because you're not a multimillionaire by age 30. But to be really fair, most people aren't. And they won't do it as bluntly as I just did. But in essence, that's the kind of thing that they'll try to do. They'll try to help somebody realize that maybe you should temper your expectations a little bit. Bring your expectations down and you won't be so down on yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. Is effectively lower your expectations a little bit. That might be a little unfair that you're holding yourself to. Once again, that is a very good thing to do, especially if somebody's beating themselves up due to unrealistic expectations for themselves. That's a very, very, very good thing to do, is to help them refocus, reframe their expectations. But there's a problem with both of these. Remember that second point of the equation was whether somebody believes they have it in them to make their reality catch their expectations. And we already established your expectations are constantly improving, increasing, regardless of whether your reality, how much your reality increases. To match them, your expectations are going to only increase. If you just make somebody's reality closer to their expectations are going to increase eventually. And more likely than not, they will have actually even less confidence that they can meet those new expectations because they know they didn't meet the prior ones. Some good Samaritan stepped in and helped them, gave it to them, created their reality for them. They can't, or they are not confident that they can meet their new expectations. If all you do is create the reality for somebody, thinking that that's going to fix their mentality, what you're actually doing is kicking the can down the road and making the problem eventually resurface, likely worse. Changing somebody's reality will not permanently fix their mentality. What about that second piece? Reorienting their expectations. Once again, good thing to do. Not a permanent fix. People's expectations are always going to increase. So unless that person is incredibly strong-willed and able to discipline and control themselves, or incredibly contented, they're going to have to consistently fight to keep their expectations from snowballing on them. It's very, very difficult to do in a healthy way. Oftentimes, our expectations for where we should be, or where we think we should be, is not entirely consciously decided. It's very challenging to constantly reframe your expectations for your life. Expectations are built by who you're around, where you are, who you interact with, what country you live in, what state you live in, what kind of career you're in. Short of radical change to all that, leaving your house, leaving your social group, maybe moving to another country if you have to, it's very, very challenging to consciously decide your expectations because they are so heavily influenced by your environment. So unless you're willing to change your environment, it's very difficult to consciously keep your expectations where you decide you want them to be long term. To me, I have found that probably the best way to help somebody who's in a dark place isn't to simply give them something to make their reality better. And it isn't simply to try and get them to refocus their expectations. It's to acknowledge that there is a delta there. That there is a delta between their reality and what they want their reality to be. And then do whatever it takes to try and help them build the confidence to believe that they can catch up. It's like the old saying, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Same kind of concept. Okay, how do you do that? Well, there's a lot of ways. Depends on what's causing their mental or emotional distress. What is it about their reality that's been left behind that they're struggling with? Is it a career? They wish they were in a certain kind of career. Okay. Give them the confidence to believe that they can get into that career. Help them. Either encourage them to take a course, encourage them to go take a class to get the skill sets, watch some YouTube videos or learn the topic, read some books, talk to people, network with people. Encourage them to gain whatever it takes to become confident they can do it. I'll give you a more concrete example. Let's say somebody is depressed because they're struggling with their weight, and they've been struggling with their weight their entire life, and they thought that they had figured it out this time. They yo-yo diet all the time. They'll knock the weight off, but then it always comes back, and they're sitting there feeling like it's hopeless. They don't have what it takes to lose the weight. Help them gain the confidence to do it. Tell them, recommend to them something simple. Just say, how about this? Instead of setting yourself an aggressive weight loss goal that you really struggle with, let's focus on not the losing the weight part. Let's focus on keeping it off. For 6 months, a year, 1 month, whatever the time frame makes sense. Suggest your goal isn't to lose weight. It's to not gain any. Can you do that? Because if you can do that, that you can keep this weight, it's no different than doing it after you've lost it. In conclusion, I think there are two main things that lead people to get into a dark mental place. One, their expectations have massively outstripped their reality. And two, they are concerned or don't believe that they have the ability to catch up. In response, do 3 things. Help their reality. If it's something that's feasible for you to give, donate, or assist with, yes. 2, temper their expectations. Help them temper their expectations, but only if their expectations are completely unrealistic or unfair for themselves. And 3, probably the most valuable, volume. Help them build their confidence to believe that they can make their reality look closer to their expectations. Be closer to their expectations. Look like their expectations. Because they do. Because they can. Help them build the confidence that they can do it. Through whatever means necessary. Be there, support them, motivate them. Self-help books, aspirational quotes, courses, classes, motivational speakers, whatever. Help them tackle small goals and build to the big ones. Help them build their confidence that their reality is malleable, they can affect it, and they can reach their expectations. As long as their expectations are reasonable, they can reach them. Self-confidence can go